class graciously sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Clemi Elia Le'ilui Nishmat, his beloved father, Emil Ben Rachel, that today is his Askara. Additionally, today's class dedicated anonymously to great hoda'ah, great gratitude to Akadosh Baruch Hu for his constant protection and kindness, and remembering the day of the miracle that happened 25 years ago, 5 years ago on the 21st day of Tammuz, as well as Shidduch for Nechama Batya among all the single young ladies of Am Israel and the men as well. And last but not least, today's class, anonymously sponsored, has a gratitude to Akadosh Baruch Hu for discovering a medical condition, repairable, minimal in size, and Baruch Hashem to remind us of following our standard medical checkups, which definitely can be utilized as a preventive measure for a healthy and a peaceful life. With all that being said, thank you very much, Professor. Today, we are going to be talking about the secret of the word shalom. This is the message of today's parasha. If we thought that the word shalom literally means peace, it means much more than peace. Therefore, I needed to do some homework and write some notes in order to be able to explain what's going on. But maybe before I do that, I need to go back a few moments, just for a few moments, about the end of last week's parasha and the beginning of this week's parasha. The end of last week's parasha talks about a very unfortunate incident after Bilaam, Baruch Hashem, fails to curse Bnei Israel. He gives a free tip to Balak and says to him the way Rashi says, Elokeh shel ele soneh zimahu. The God of the Jewish people despises immorality, promiscuity, etc. And then the Torah tells me the unfortunate incident, how Bnei Israel were involved in two sins, the sins of Baal Peor, which was idolatry, plus the sin of Zenut, which sit there, please, better, because I need to open up the books. Put a chair in front. Thank you. And the sin of Zenut. This is how the last week parasha concludes, and we see the unfortunate situation that says that a man became involved with a Goya in front of Moshe Rabbeinu, in front of all of the Jewish people. Phinehas springs into action. Vayikach Romach beyado. Phinehas took a spear and gets rid of the men and this lady. The beginning of this week's parasha, before I continue, because of this action, how many people died in last week's parasha? The Kahal says 24,000. What if I tell you that the number was 200,000? It's a pasuk in the parasha. The pasuk, that's what the pasuk says, 24,000 of Shevet Shimon. That's why Shevet Shimon, from being a large tribe in the parasha of the census, they are very low. They went down to 22,000 and change. They should have been close to 50,000. But I'm telling you what the pasuk says. Vayomer Moshe shofetei Israel hirgu ish anashav. Each one activates the judgment to the people. So it says how many people were involved in this matter. Bottom line, כל אחד ואחד היה הורג שיניים, בדייני ישראל 7,800, So if we have 87,000 Dayanim, and each Dayan got rid of 2 people involved in Baal Peor, so how many did they execute it? 176,000 plus 24 of Shevet Shimon, that's 200,000. It's not me, it's the Pasuk. The difference was that the Magefa, the 24,000 is a Magefa. There is a difference between a Magefa and execution. Magefa means from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, direct hit. Execution through the Bedin. Next, I need to set up the stage for what's coming. Comes the Torah and talks about a new hero, Phinehas, ben Elazar, ben Aharon HaKohen. The Torah testifies that all his actions were Leshem Shamayim, the way the Pasuk says, Lachen emor lo, Hineni noten lo et beriti, Shalom. God says, I am giving Phinehas myself, God says, a covenant of peace. That's the reason why the Pasuk says, Phinehas ben Elazar ben Aharon HaKohen. I said this 2 days ago, that because of this heroic act of Phinehas, Phinehas was promoted to become a Kohen. Phinehas, till last week's parasha, was a Levi, because Phinehas was the son of Elazar Kohen, but only when Elazar was promoted to become a Kohen, and the new children born after the promotion, it's like an immigration case. Let's say that you have an immigration status, correct? A parent, father and mother, can request immigration status for their children below the age of 18, I believe. Once they turn 18 or once they turn 21, they must file by themselves. So you can have parents which have legal status in the country, American, let's say, and children which they are on a green card. If this touches close to home, I'm not an immigration attorney, but talk to me before you do anything. I hear so much from people cases that I learn from what the people go through, but I'm not an immigration attorney. But what I'm telling you is what I hear from people. Today, even the naturalized Americans, not sure if they can remain in the country. Have you heard of this? It's happening. Relax. Nobody's coming. ICE is not coming to the synagogue. Relax. Okay, but look at the news. Right? Didn't you hear this? You heard this, right? Yes. Let's say you became a U.S. citizen. Hazaku Baruch, Mazel Tov, you have the picture of the American flag, the Constitution, and you know all the 50 answers. Now the government, if they need to, or there is a particular reason, can stripe the citizenship from the people. Correct? That's what's happening. That's why people are being told, if you need to leave the country and your immigration status is not clear-cut, think twice before you do it. But relax. The purpose of this Torah class is not to discuss immigration laws, but if I look around the room, I'm going to ask the audience a question. How many Americans born in the USA are in our room today? I see one. Thank you for being the American ambassador at the Edmond J. Safra Synagogue. 1 people out of 50. Right? So, okay, you're good. You're good. The rest of us, you know, all over. We have a call, Mikol Kol. United Nations, that's what we have. 1 American out of this beautiful crowd. And this is the breakfast room. If you go outside to the minyan, already finished, probably will have one. Your brother is born in the USA. But the idea is not to frighten anybody. I'm just telling you what's happening today. And in a way, Phinehas transitioned from a Levi to a Kohen. Who gave them that upgrade? Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Hineni means I am. Noten lo et beriti shalom. I am giving him the covenant of peace. There is something very peculiar in the word shalom in the Sefer Torah. That this time the word shalom is broken in half. The vav, instead of being, I'm going to write it so the Kahal Kadosh understand. Instead of being a long regular vav, the vav has a cut in the middle. This is called vav keti'ah. And the question is, why? If you go up to the Sefer, you look for the word shalom, you'll see exactly what I'm saying. Don't start screaming, Sefer Torah Pasul. It happened, by the way. It happened in a synagogue. I'm not going to tell you where. The rabbi wasn't there, and somebody did Maria Ketab. Say, hold on. The Sefer Torah is Pasul. Say, why is Pasul? He went up as Kohen. Because the Vav, it's in the middle. You got to take out the Sefer Torah. Cannot say the Beracha. A whole balagan happened in the Minyan. I was not there, Baruch Hashem. Otherwise, I would have stepped up to the plate. But somebody told me this story. That after the tefillah, the gabbai didn't want to bother the rabbi that was out of town for a few days. Called the sofer immediately. Drop everything you have. I need you to come to our synagogue. Not here, Baruch Hashem. It happened very far from here. Fix the Sefer Torah. Comes the sofer, and he looks, show me. Says the word shalom. The vav is caught. So the sofer says the vav is caught in purpose. How come? In a regular Torah case, if a letter is cracked or broken in the middle, you have to fix it. Why lehatechila, this vav of shalom is cut in half? So I'm going to start writing a few words. In Hebrew, and there are so many explanations, just bear with me because it will take us a few minutes. So if I remove this vav that is cut in half, it gives me the word shalem. Because if I remove the lower part of the vav, it gives me the word shalem. What's the meaning of the word shalem? Complete. Complete. From here we learn a halacha that a kohen that works in the Bet HaMikdash or an animal that is going to be offered in the Bet HaMikdash, it cannot be Ba'al Mum. It cannot have any blemish. It needs to be Shalem. Our pious people, when they write the name of the city, Yerushalayim, you know how they write it? Yerushalem. They don't write Yerushalayim. Why not? Because Yerushalayim is not complete until Mashiach comes. That's why they write Yerushalem. Look in the Tefillin boxes, and many holy rabbis, I'm not sure if this has it, but when they write Yerushalayim, they write Yerushalem. Right? Now, thank you so much. You can erase that. With that being said, allow me to quote quickly just 2 or 3 pirushim before we take a deep dive into this particular pasuk. So allow me to read the Rashi right here. Hineni noten lo et beriti shalom, vav keti'ah. A broken vav. The way it says in Gemara Kiddushin, it says, Keshehu Shalem, when Phinehas became complete. What does it mean complete? So most of us will think that the perfection of a Kohen needs to be in his body. What does it mean, perfection in the body? Doesn't mean on height, weight, etc. But it means vision, listening, movement of the hands, movement of the leg, no external, obvious, visible physical blemishes. That is tam or pagum. Tam means perfect, pagum means blemish. But there is an additional blemish that a Kohen can have, and this is the blemish of killing someone. If, God forbid, a Kohen, God forbid, kills someone, it's a question if he's able to go up to Birkat Kohanim. That's why there is a halachic debate if a Kohen can become a doctor, because he trains on dead bodies, and occasionally it could happen, especially if he's a surgeon, especially in the surgery department, that the patient may not make it. I'm not saying that it's forbidden. Now you're going to call Dr. Cohen. The rabbi said you cannot be a doctor. Relax. I said that a Kohen needs to think twice because of this scenario. I remember vividly over 25 years ago that in my previous position in 41st Street, Sha'arei Ezra, that I have great memories from my younger years, there was a doctor visiting from Israel. And I saw in the Koracha his name. And after Tefillah, I was young and very innocent. I'm not saying that I'm old now, but there was a time that I was younger and I was more innocent than intelligent. So I went to the Kohen and I said, excuse me, lama ta lo alita le birkat kohanim? Why you didn't go up to do birkat kohanim? And he says to me, this is what he told me, a doctor. He says, I'm a Kohen and I was involved in surgery less than a year ago. And regretfully, the patient didn't make it in my hand. So I did a halachic question in Israel by one of the great poskim, and he told me, take a step back of Birkat Kohanim for 1 year. Now, I'm telling you now that this story doesn't mean that this is the halakha that we actually follow. But what was the issue with Phinehas? Phinehas executed a man and a woman. God says, Hineni noten lo. It's like sometimes the workers tell me, Rabbi, people say this, people say that. Tell them the rabbi said no. Use my name, don't use it all the time. Use my name to tell them, don't come into the kitchen. That's it. I'm bringing just a fictitious example. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Hineni noten lo et beriti shalom. I'm the one giving him the covenant of peace. Why? You know why? Because people started to complain against Phinehas. They say, look at this guy. He is the great-grandson of Yitro. Yitro used to offer offerings to Avodah Zarah. That was the great-grandfather of Phinehas. He had Aharon HaKohen as his grandfather, and the mother or the grandfather or the father of Eleazar's wife was Yitro. So Haraita ben Puti ze. Ben Puti. Who is Ben Puti? Putiel. Yitro. Why was called Puti? Puti means shemefatem. He will feed animals to become heavy to offer them for idolatry. So they say, Yani, look at him. His grandfather or great-grandfather was doing Avodah Zarah, and now he wants to become the chief rabbi. More than Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what happened with Phinehas. Phinehas was put on a whole different league. God says, anybody has an issue, come talk to me. That's what I tell my office. Anybody gives you a hard time for something, tell them speak to the rabbi. Guess what? 50% of the time, there is no follow-up because people say, oh, the rabbi said it, that's it. Hamavdil, God forbid, I'm not comparing myself to God. I'm nothing. But I'm telling you basically, I'm using a real life example to understand why the Torah says, Hineni, God says, I am the one giving him the peace. Don't give me halachic comments. Don't tell me the great grandfather or the grandfather was Yitro. If I'm telling you, Phinehas leshem shamayim, Phinehas leshem shamayim. Comes the Baal HaTurim and it says, מתנה שלמה אני נותן לו. I'm giving him full benefits as a Kohen, but I'm giving him more. Phinehas hu Eliyahu. In the Berit Milah, don't we sing לכבודכם דת לבבי? כהן לאל עליון הוא, פנחס הוא אליהו הנביא. Okay, you know the song? That's the song of the Berit Milah. What does it say? Phinehas hu Eliyahu. Phinehas is Eliyahu Navi. That was the promotion given to Phinehas. But yet, if you look in the Pasuk in Malachi, at the end of the Terei Asar, the Pasuk says, הנה אנוכי שולח לכם את אליה. I'm missing a vav. What happened to the vav of Eliyahu? Says the Baal HaTurim, that vav was kidnapped by Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov always without vav. Some places, vav. Can you bring me a Chumash Bereshit art scroll, full version? Before I say something, I want to confirm that here and here are on the same page. Sometimes there is big discrepancy. Hazaku Baruch. Thank you so much. Before I say it, Dee-da-da-dee-da-dee. I know the pasuk, but just want to see the way it's written. Almost there. Almost there. Okay. The pasuk says in Perashat Vayishlach, Vayavo Yaakov Shalem. What was the brother of the word Shalom? Shalem. So it says the Baal HaTurim, Yaakov Avinu took the vav from Eliyahu. For what purpose? Lemashkon ad sheyavo im HaMashiach veigael et banav. Imagine yourself, I want something from him. What do I say? I'm going to take this mashkon. Until when? Ask me until when? Until Mashiach comes. Mashiach comes, I give you back the letter Vav. That's what the Baal HaTurim says. And that's what the Pasuk says. Yagel Yaakov Ismach Israel. Book of Tehillim. Anybody has a book of Tehillim handy? Chapter 14. Yagel Yaakov Ismach Israel. Yagel Yaakov Ismach. What's the meaning of Ismach? Otiyot Mashiach. Ismach. Ismach Mashiach. Yagel Yaakov Ismach Israel. Yaakov will rejoice when he sees the Jewish people happy. When the entire nation will be happy? When Mashiach comes. When Mashiach comes? When Eliyahu Navi comes. So Yaakov Avinu says to Eliyahu, I'm going to borrow your vav. I won't guarantee that you're coming. You want the letter back? you need to come back. Says the Baal HaTurim, ויהיה אליהו שלם, שלום בגמטריה, זהו Mashiach. Fascinating statement from the Baal HaTurim. Mr. Freddy, you can erase all of the above because I have more action coming up. Okay, so we discussed the Baal HaTurim. Now we're going to talk about Zimri ben Salu. Zimri, correct? What was the name of the fellow? Zimri. Zimri. How many names Zimri ben Salu had throughout his life? I'm going to tell you a few. Number one, Shaul ben Hakenaani. Another one was Shelumiel ben Suri Shaddai. Those are some of the names that Zimri ben Salu had. Now, Zimri was born in Sefer Bereshit, in the story of Shechem. Remember, Dinah went out, and Dinah was taken by Shechem ben Hamor, and she was violated. Dinah became pregnant. One of the children that she had, first child, was Osnat, the future wife of Yosef HaSaddik. That's who Yosef HaSaddik was married. Osnat was the daughter of Dinah. Why the Torah calls Osnat but Potiphera Kohen On? Because Potiphera and his wife, Potiphar and his wife, adopted Osnat. Because since Osnat was born out of rape, it wasn't a good fit among the grandchildren of Yaakov Avinu. So what did Yaakov Avinu do? Took Osnat, put it in a basket, and wrote a kemiyah for her. And Malach Michael delivered Osnat to the doors of Potiphar. Potiphar was not able to have children. And the reason why Zuleika, the wife of Potiphar, attempted to seduce Yosef HaSaddik, because she saw in her astrological stars that Yosef and her will have a child. Her mistake was that the children of Yosef were going to be born from her stepdaughter. You follow me? So that was daughter number one of Dinah. When Shimon and Levi came to the rescue, Dinah refused to leave. She says, who is going to take me? I was violated by a goy. I'm pregnant. Who is going to take me? You know what Shimon said? I'm going to take you. Shimon married his sister Dinah. Now you may say, how come? Because a lot of things happen before Matan Torah. Who do you think the Shevatim married? Their sisters. Every Shevet was born with a girl. We don't pay too much attention to it, but that's what's written in the holy books. So how was the child born from the marriage between Shimon and Dinah? Shaul ben Hakenaanit. The Torah protected Dinah by not saying Shaul ben Dinah. Why Kenaanit? Because she was violated in Canaan. The city of Shechem is in Canaan. So the Torah camouflages the incident by giving it a name. This same fellow later on became great. Now it's called Shelumiel ben Suri Shaddai. He was the leader of Shevet Shimon. You know how old was Zimri when this incident happened in the parasha? 250 years. Make the Heshbon. We were in Egypt 210 plus 40 years in the desert, 250, give or take. But the question is why it's called Zimri. Where you give him a new identity. Why it's called Zimri? I saw today a fascinating Hidush. Don't erase it yet. In the Sefer Matok Haor, from one of the great Hachamim from Eretz Israel, Rabbi Shlomo Levinstein. He was here a year ago. He spoke in our Kollel, and he explains as follows. Zimri, if I add the letters of the word Zimri, I have, he says, 247, 257. Now, 257, he wrote here, the Pasuk says in Sefer Devarim, Lo tithaten bam. A Yehudi is not allowed to marry a Goya. What did Zimri wanted to do? Zimri wanted to remove this mitzvah from the Torah. He explains what happens with the Yod. So he goes to say that if the Yod, we utilize it for something else, so now I have only 247 plus the mitzvah of Lotit Haten Bam. A Yehudi cannot marry a Goya. How much will that be? 248. What was the weapon of choice of Phinehas to execute Zimri ben Salu? Romach. Vayikach Romach beyado. What's the meaning of the word Romach? Spear. But what's the numerical value of the word Romach? 248. So it says that Zimri ben Salu wanted to remove one mitzvah of not marrying Goyim. Because he says to Moshe, who allow you to marry Tzipporah? Who allow you to marry the daughter of Yitro in the case of Elazar Cohen? But his claim is not valid. Why? Because the prohibition of marrying Goyim was activated when? After Matan Torah. After the Torah was given. When did Moshe Rabbeinu marry Tzipporah? Before Matan Torah. So the claim of Zimri was worthless. But that's what the Matoka Or explained, that that's the reason why Zimri wanted to remove one mitzvah. And not only that, there is, what's the numerical value of all of the mitzvot of the Torah? 613. How do you say that in Hebrew? Taryag. What if I want to do 614? How will you say that in Hebrew? Taryag. What's the meaning of the word Taryag? 614 comes from tered. You go down the drain. You want to add a mitzvah, you go down the drain. You want to remove the mitzvah, you go down the drain. What the Pasuk says, Lo tosif velo tigra. You want to be cute. You said, Rabbi, I have a chidush. From now on, the sisit will have 6 sisiot. What do we tell you? Stay quiet. Why? I want to do more. The Torah gave me 4. Rabbi, I want to do, instead of 4, I want to do 2. I want to save. The Torah tells me 2. That was the issue of Zimri ben Salu. Zimri ben Salu wanted to alter the Torah for his own convenience. And that's the reason why the great rabbi writes, it says, I wrote it so far, and he talks about the sukkah. Now, what has to do the sukkah with this topic that we're discussing today? So the great rabbi wrote in his Safra, and it says, what is the sukkah? The sukkah is called Hashem surrounds the person. It says that a person needs to enter the chamber of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The sukkah is called in the language of the Zohar, Tzilta Dimhemenuta, the shadow of Emunah. It says, you have any question? You want to add, you want to remove, you want to change? Before you think of any of these changes, go into the sukkah, go into the Torah, connect with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, connect with the Hachamim, and then you will come to realize what the Pasuk says, Lo tosif velo tikra. Lo tigra. Don't add and don't decrease neither. But I'll tell you a secret, that this was only the introduction. This was only the introduction. But I'm going to take 5 more minutes. If anybody needs to leave, you are allowed to leave. I don't mind, I don't object, etc. So here he brings the Targum Yonatan ben Uziel, discussing how Phinehas received eternal shalom. The Gemara in Shabbat says, you're not allowed to say shalom to your friend in the mikveh or in the bathhouse. Why not? Ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu nikra shalom. If you look in the book of Shofetim, in chapter 6, that says, Vayikra lo Hashem shalom. And it says that shalom is not a kinui, it's not a nickname, or stam a nice word to say. Shemotav, ehad mishemotav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says one of the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the word shalom. That's why you cannot say in the mikveh neither Shabbat, shalom, harav. I'm reviewing Rabbi Levinstein's Hidush. We were discussing it in the morning in the Kolel. Fascinating Hidush. He said it better than me. That's why I was taking notes very, very fast. And the Shulchan Aruch and the Maharil and others brings different concepts when it comes to write a letter. If you can write in the word at the end of the letter shalom, and the letter is going to throw into the garbage, what happens now? Now you have Hashem's name. So what they suggest, do like this. Shalom with a little chupchik on top, and that's like the word shalom. I'm not sure how many people are makpid on this topic. Another hidush, and I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to keep it short, and it says that even when the person, right here, it says as follows. When you talk on the phone, it says initiate the phone call with the word shalom. Why? Because when you say the word shalom, you are summoning HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the conversation. And it says also at the end, Kevan she'ashalom, since peace is one of the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and one of the biggest joy and desires of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is to bring peace into the people, it says, initiate the conversation with the word shalom, and Hashem brings shefa, beracha, and aslaha to the people talking. Obviously, if you're going to say shalom, and then you're going to start cursing the person, forget about it. That's why sometimes people in Israel, I discovered this recently. When you call a company and you say shalom, what people answer you back? Ubracha. Why ubracha? Because that is what the Mishnah says. In the name of Rabbi Shimon, it says the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon Mehalafta, לא מצא הקדוש ברוך הוא כלי מחזיק ברכה לישראל, אלא השלום. The non-Mishnah. Hashem did not find a vessel that is able to contain blessing for the Jewish people like peace. שנאמר, השם עוז לעמו ייתן, השם יברך את עמו בשלום. That's the reason why in Birkat HaLevana, when we finish Birkat HaLevana, what do we say? Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem. Why do you say Shalom Aleichem in the Birkat HaLevana when you finish Birkat HaLevana? I'll tell you what I saw once in writing, that because when you say Birkat HaLevana, you're saying a lot of prayers to block the enemies against the Jewish people. You say to them, Tipol עליהם אימת ופחד, or it says, כשם שאני רוקד כנגדך, בין יכולי גביך כך אם רקדו אחרים להזיקנו, לא יכלו לי גם אנו. The same way we say, כשם אני רוקד, the same way that I'm dancing in front of you, but I'm not able to reach you, also my enemies were going to start dancing against the Jewish people, will not be able to touch any Yehudi. And on top of that, we say, Tipol עליהם אימת ופחד, says, may fall upon them fear and trepidation. So imagine you're standing next to somebody in the Birkat HaLevana and you say, Uli, is he praying against me? So at the end of the Birkat HaLevana, what do you say? Shalom Aleichem. This is against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranians. Upon you, Shalom. That's what the great rabbi wrote in this particular parasha. I mean, this is only one of the 4 pages. Belly nether, we may try to continue these. Why specifically Phinehas was promoted as a Malach and not Moshe Rabbeinu, and what is the consequence of Eliyahu Navi, why Eliyahu Navi specifically is the continuation of Phinehas, and why Eliyahu Navi suffers every time he comes to a Berit Milah. All these things are all based from this week Torah portions of Be'ezat Hashem, unless Eliyahu Navi comes today, which we have been waiting for him a very long time. I'm going to take something from Eliyahu Navi. Maybe I take a sambusak from the Berit Milah. Maybe that's, it's going to create some reaction. But fascinating Hidushim from the great Rabbi Rabbi Shlomo Levinstein from Eretz Israel. Hopefully he'll be here in a few months. I will bring him Be'ezat Hashem to speak to the Kahal Kadosh. But let's put into practice what we finished today. Not only begin the conversation with the word Shalom, but actually finish the conversation as well as with the word Shalom. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen Be'amen. Rabbi Hananiah ben Akashia Omer, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל